a fighter pilot by trade, an instructor pilot, and a weapons instructor, tactics instructor, now turned into a defense attaché in Central Asia. So risk is the big theme, of course, and in the course of my career, and specifically to safety management, for example, I've orchestrated a safety case, which is a risk assessment, and the question, can we integrate large drones in the European airspace or not? And secondly, I managed the Mazar-e-Sharif International Airport in Afghanistan, including safety, security, and operations. So I think that's enough for a quick introduction, and I would like to turn it over to Dr. Vogel.
So just a few words on my background, Dr. Daniel Vogel. I graduated Embry-Riddle with a master's degree in aviation management. I do have a PhD in air transport and safety management, and unlike Dr. Hans-Joachim Ruff-Stahl, I'm out of a civilian background, worked for several European airlines as well as in the training department of a major US airlines, where I took the responsibility for a human factors centered course. And my research interest is primarily the human factors component of the system, with, of course, the risk analysis program and the safety management part of that as well.
Imagination has to do something. Risk is something that entirely happens in between our ears, so to speak. Risk is not something you can see, unless you really think about it and try to quantify it. So the target group is for everybody who's working on this sharp end of various organizations that have to do with aviation, of course, and also for managers. And the idea, is you have to imagine, what's the worst case that can happen? What's the worst accident in any given scenario in your area of responsibility that can happen? And then you try to find a theoretical, a hypothetical, a potential path from your current operations to that worst case. Why would you do that? Why would you think the unthinkable in order to prevent it? In order to install corrections and controls, and we want to do that based on current regulations. So that's the point. And that's why imagination is so important for risk management and SMS. And that's what we're trying to tie everything together in that course. The skills will be, you will actually be able to complete an SMS for your organization. Not entirely, of course, because that's a huge task, but you will be able to manage it, and you will be able to understand what's happening, why it's happening, and how it needs to be done.
I think it is the unique background that Dr. Hans-Joachim Ruff-Stahl and myself take. We do have a mixed methods approach on the safety management perspective, because on the one hand, we do not only consider the regulatory and managerial part, but we also focus on the human operator. And I'm very thrilled and excited to share that basically the course has been accredited by the European Association of Aviation Psychology, and members of the EAAP will get a 15% discount. And I feel that this shows the credibility that our human factors-centered approach takes.
So one important point I would like to make is, and that's why we look at it from a managerial perspective, is we don't focus only on safety. That would not make sense. Why? Because the safest approach to operations is not to fly at all. And so the point is, you have to find the optimum balance between profitability or operational effectiveness on one hand and safety on the other. So that's very important to understand where we are coming from. And then the other thing I can try is, this course from a regulatory environment, we will look at both the FAA rules and European EASA rules. So we'll have a look at both worlds. And that's important in a more and more globalized world to understand where the other side is coming from, and much more importantly, to understand that actually there's almost no difference. Well, the course is about a 40 workload course, so you will need to dedicate 40 hours in studying. Of course, the individual assignments will, of course, vary on your background, vary on your prior knowledge and what you have to do, but you will end up with 40 hours. So it's not something that can be done just 10 minutes a day or so. And the 2 hours of live instruction that we want to have is really an interactive way to make sure that the participants or students have really understood the course matter and the specific way that we're looking at it, like Dr. Vogel said, we want to look at SMS through the lens or from the perspective of the human or the organization or culture. Because often we are our own worst enemies. So you don't need outside risk. If you just look at ourselves, if you just look at our organization in depth enough, if you look at our culture, we will be really be able to prevent the most prevalent and pressing risks.